The lobby of Providence General Hospital was usually filled with the quiet hum of worried families and paging doctors, but today it was a war zone of confusion. Blue lights flashed against the glass doors as a convoy of black SUVs screeched to a halt outside. Armed federal agents swarmed the entrance, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The terrifying click of safety latches disengaging echoed off the marble walls. Dr. Gregory Sterling, the chief of surgery, stepped forward, his voice trembling. "What is the meaning of this? You can't just barge in here." The lead agent didn't even look at him. He scanned the room, his eyes locking onto a woman mopping a spill in the corner. "We aren't here for you, Doctor. We're here for Captain Hayes, and God help us if we're too late." Providence General Hospital in Seattle was widely considered one of the best medical facilities on the West Coast. It was a place of gleaming steel, advanced robotics, and egos large enough to fill the atrium. At the bottom of this hierarchy was Amelia Hayes. To the staff at Providence, Amelia was a ghost. She was 32, with tired eyes, and hair always pulled back in a severe, messy bun. She wore the generic light blue scrubs of the auxiliary nursing staff, the ones tasked with changing bedpans, checking vitals when the real nurses were too busy, and cleaning up the messes that the surgeons left behind. She spoke very little, moved with silent efficiency, and never complained. This silence, however, was often mistaken for weakness. "Hayes, I asked for the saline drip 10 minutes ago," Dr. Gregory Sterling barked, throwing a patient's chart onto the counter. Amelia didn't flinch. She picked up the chart, her face impassive. "The pharmacy was backed up, Doctor. I have it right here." Gregory sneered. He was a man who had graduated top of his class from Harvard Medical School and never let anyone forget it. He was handsome in a polished magazine cover sort of way, but his personality was as caustic as battery acid. "You're slow, Hayes. That's your problem. You have no sense of urgency. If you were a real nurse, you'd understand that time is money in this hospital." "I thought time was life, Doctor," Amelia said softly, her voice steady. The surrounding nurses gasped. The head nurse, Brenda, a woman who had allied herself with Gregory to protect her own position, stepped in immediately. "Watch your tone, Amelia. Dr. Sterling is the chief of surgery. You are well. You're just extra hands. Don't forget that." Amelia looked at Brenda, then back at Gregory. For a split second, a flash of something dangerous ignited in her grey eyes, a look of cold, calculated assessment that didn't belong on the face of a nursing assistant. But just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. "My apologies," she said, though the apology didn't reach her eyes. "I'll set up the IV in room 402. She walked away, the squeak of her rubber soles against the linoleum, the only sound following her. "I don't know why we keep her," Gregory muttered, adjusting his silk tie. "She's washed up. Probably failed nursing school twice. She walks like she's carrying the weight of the world, but she can barely carry a tray of instruments." Brenda laughed, a sharp, unpleasant sound. "HR says she's a veteran or something. Tax breaks for hiring them. Probably cooked potatoes in the mess hall for 4 years and calls it service." Amelia heard them. She always heard them. Her hearing had been tuned in environments far more hostile than a sterile hospital hallway. She didn't cook potatoes. She had specialized in trauma stabilization in active combat zones in Kandahar and Syria. She had performed emergency tracheotomies in the back of vibrating Black Hawks while taking fire. She had held the hands of boys who died calling for their mothers, and she had made impossible decisions that would shatter a man like Gregory Sterling in seconds. But here, she was just Amelia, the quiet one, the slow one. She entered room 402. The patient, an elderly man named Mr. Henderson, smiled weakly. He was a retired mechanic, his hands rough and stained with years of oil, now pale against the white sheets. "They giving you a hard time again, darling?" Mr. Henderson wheezed. Amelia checked his monitor, her movements precise and gentle. "Nothing I can't handle, Mr. Henderson. How is the chest pain?" "Better when you're around," he winked. "You know you have good hands. Steady. My nephew is a surgeon in Chicago. He shakes like a leaf when he's nervous. You? You're like a rock." "Just practice," Amelia murmured, injecting the saline. She noticed a slight irregularity in his heart rate monitor, a micro-fluctuation that most nurses would ignore. She frowned, checking his pupil dilation. "Mr. Henderson, have you felt any dizziness in the last hour? Any metallic taste in your mouth?" "A little," he admitted. "Tastes like I've been sucking on a penny." Amelia's internal alarm bells rang. Metallic taste, microarrhythmia. It wasn't just post-op fatigue. It was a reaction to the specific antibiotic cocktail Gregory had prescribed. It was interacting with his heart medication. It was a rare contraindication, one often missed in textbooks, but well known in field medicine, where supplies were mixed and matched out of necessity. "I'm going to stop this drip," Amelia said firmly. "But the doctor said—" "The doctor is wrong," she said, her voice dropping an octave, losing its soft, subservient edge. It was the voice of command. She hit the stop button on the IV pump and immediately flushed the line with pure saline. Just then, the door banged open. Dr. Gregory Sterling stood there, flanked by Brenda and a group of terrified-looking interns. "What do you think you are doing?" Gregory demanded, his face turning a shade of crimson. "That patient is on a strict regimen." "He's having a reaction to the ciprofloxacin," Amelia said, not stepping away from the bed. "It's interacting with his beta blockers. Look at the arrhythmia. He has a metallic taste. If you keep pushing this, he'll go into cardiac arrest within 20 minutes. Gregory stormed over, shoving Amelia aside with his shoulder. He looked at the monitor. "That's just noise, a sensor error. You are overstepping your bounds, nurse. You are not a doctor. You are not even a registered nurse. You are an assistant. Do not touch my equipment again." He restarted the drip. Amelia's hand shot out, grabbing Gregory's wrist. The grip was ironclad. The room went dead silent. The intern's jaws dropped. Nobody touched Gregory Sterling. "Check his chart," Amelia said, her voice low and dangerous. "He has a history of renal sensitivity. The interaction isn't theoretical, it's lethal. Look at his fingernails. Cyanosis is starting." Gregory stared at her, shocked by the physical strength of the woman. He yanked his arm back, rubbing his wrist. "Get out," he hissed. "Get out of my room. Get out of my ward. Brenda, write her up. I want her suspended pending termination. Now." Amelia looked at Mr. Henderson, whose breathing was beginning to hitch. She looked at the arrogant doctor who was about to kill a man due to pride. She made a choice. She stepped back, knowing that physical confrontation here would land her in jail, and she couldn't save anyone from a cell. "If he codes," Amelia said, staring directly into Gregory's soul, "use epinephrine, not atropine. Atropine will kill him instantly with this specific interaction." "Get out!" Gregory screamed. Amelia turned and walked out. She didn't go to the locker room to cry. She went to the supply closet down the hall, sat on a crate of gauze, and pulled out a burner phone she kept hidden in her sock. She dialed a number that didn't exist in any public directory. "It's Hayes," she whispered. "I need a consult. Off the books. Toxicology profile for Cipro-beta interactions. Yeah, I'm at Providence. No, I haven't blown my cover. Yet." 3 hours later, the hospital atmosphere shifted from routine chaos to high-stakes panic. Amelia was technically suspended. But she hadn't left. She was sitting in the cafeteria, nursing a black coffee, watching the exits. She knew Mr. Henderson was a ticking time bomb, and she refused to be far away when the explosion happened. But before the inevitable code blue could ring out for room 402, something else happened. The hospital's main entrance was suddenly flooded with men in dark suits. These weren't the FBI agents from the opening scene. Not yet. These were private security. High-end, mercenary types. They wore earpieces and moved in a diamond formation around a stretcher that was being rushed in from a private ambulance. Amelia watched from the balcony of the second floor. She recognized the formation. Private military contractors, she thought. Blackwater or something similar. Who is on that stretcher? Dr. Sterling and the hospital administrator, Mr. Cromwell, were running to meet the stretcher. "Clear the trauma bay," Sterling was shouting, looking important and flushed with excitement. "VIP incoming. I want the entire East Wing cleared." Amelia stood up and walked to the railing. She squinted. The man on the stretcher was covered in blood, his face pale. He was older, perhaps 60. Despite the blood, she recognized him. It was Senator William Thorne, the chairman of the Defense Appropriations Committee, a man who held the purse strings for the entire United States military. "Gunshot wound to the abdomen," one of the security guards shouted. "2 hits, he's losing pressure fast." Sterling took charge. "Get him to OR1 immediately. I'll handle this personally." As they wheeled the senator past the cafeteria overlook, Amelia's eyes narrowed. She saw the wound dressing. It was soaked through, but the blood wasn't bright red. It was dark, almost black. That's not just a gunshot wound, she thought, her heart rate spiking. That's arterial, but the color. Is he poisoned, or is that? She sniffed the air. Even from 20 feet away, a faint, sweet scent lingered in the wake of the stretcher. Like almonds and rotten fruit. Cyanide-laced bullets? No, too fast. Neurotoxin. Amelia began to move. She knew she was suspended. She knew if she walked into that OR, she would be arrested. But Senator Thorne wasn't just a politician. He was a good man. She had met him once, years ago, during a debriefing in Washington after a mission that officially never happened. He had shaken her hand and thanked her for bringing her team home. She couldn't let Sterling butcher him. Amelia slipped down the back stairwell, bypassing the security checkpoint, using a maintenance keycard she had acquired months ago. She changed back into a fresh set of scrubs she kept in her locker, put on a surgical mask, and blended into the flurry of activity heading toward OR1. Inside the prep room, Sterling was scrubbing in, looking frantic. The pressure was getting to him. "Where is the blood? Why isn't the O-neg here yet?" "The blood bank is running it up, doctor," a nurse cried. "We don't have time," Sterling yelled. Amelia slipped into the corner of the OR, standing near the anesthesiologist. She watched as they transferred the senator to the table. The monitors were screaming. "BP 60 over 40. He's crashing!" the anesthesiologist shouted. "I can't get a stable rhythm." "Cut him open," Sterling ordered. "We need to clamp the bleeder." "Wait," Amelia said. Her voice was muffled by the mask, but it carried authority. Sterling looked up, his eyes wild. "Who said that? Who is in here?" "The blood is dark," Amelia said, stepping forward. "Look at the coagulation. It's not clotting. It's liquefying. If you cut him now, he will bleed out in 30 seconds. He's been hit with a coagulopathy agent, probably distinct to the Russian Voronoi series." Sterling recognized the voice. He ripped his mask down. "You! Hayes! Security! Get security in here!" "You cut him, you kill him," Amelia said, holding her ground. "You need to push vitamin K and fibrinogen first. You need to neutralize the agent before you operate." "He has a bullet in his aorta," Sterling screamed. He doesn't need vitamins, you stupid woman. He needs surgery. Get her out of here." Two of the private security guards stepped into the room. They were huge, heavily armed. "Get this woman out," Sterling commanded. "She is a suspended nurse who is mentally unstable. She is interfering with a federal official's surgery." One of the guards grabbed Amelia by the arm. She didn't resist. She knew that if she fought back, she would have to hurt them, and that would end her career and her cover permanently. "Listen to me," Amelia shouted at the guard. "Tell him to check the coagulation time. Just check it." The guard dragged her out. "You need to leave, Mom. Now." They threw her out into the hallway. The door to OR1 hissed shut. Amelia stood there, breathing hard. She looked at the digital clock on the wall. "Senator Thorne has about 5 minutes," she calculated. "Sterling is going to make the incision. The blood won't stop. Thorne will code. And then the country loses one of its most important leaders because of an ego in a white coat." She couldn't wait anymore. Protocol be damned. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the burner phone again. This time, she didn't call for a consult. She dialed a panic code, a sequence of numbers she was only supposed to use if the United States government was under immediate threat. "This is Sierra 1 Niner. Authentication code, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot 0. Immediate assist required at coordinates 47.6062 north, 122.3321 west. Hostile situation involving high-value asset. Local command compromised. Send the cavalry." She hung up and dropped the phone into a trash can. Inside OR1, the nightmare Amelia predicted was unfolding with terrifying speed. "Scalpel," Sterling said. He made the incision. Immediately, blood welled up, not in a controlled flow, but in a torrent. It was thin, watery, and dark. "Suction! More suction!" Sterling yelled. "Why isn't it stopping?" "We can't find the source, Doctor. It's coming from everywhere. The capillaries are bursting," the assisting surgeon cried. "BP is dropping. 40/20. We're losing him." Sterling froze. His hands were covered in the senator's blood. He looked at the open cavity. Nothing he did was working. The clamps slipped. The sutures tore through the tissue like wet paper. "It won't clot," Sterling whispered, horror dawning on him. She was right. "Doctor, he's flatlining." "Start compressions." Outside in the hallway, the hospital PA system chimed. But it wasn't a code blue. It was a harsh, jarring siren that no one had heard before. "Code black. Lockdown initiated. All exits sealed. Shelter in place." The blast doors at the end of the corridor slammed shut. The elevators locked. The private security guards outside the OR looked at each other, confused. "Code black, is that a bomb threat?" one guard asked. Amelia was standing by the nurse's station, her arms crossed. She wasn't looking at the guards. She was looking at the main entrance cameras on the security monitor behind the desk. "No," Amelia said calmly to the terrified ward clerk. "It's not a bomb." "What is it?" the clerk squeaked. "Intervention," Amelia said. Suddenly, the phone at the nurse's station rang. It was the red phone, the direct line to the hospital administrator. The clerk picked it up, listened, and turned pale. She handed the phone to Amelia, seemingly without thinking, as if Amelia was the only person calm enough to take it. "It's for you," the clerk whispered. "They asked for Captain." Amelia took the phone. "This is Hayes." A crisp voice on the other end spoke. "Captain Hayes, this is Director Miller, FBI. We are 2 minutes out. We have a bird in the air. What is the status of the asset?" "Asset is critical. Local surgeon compromised the integrity of the patient despite warning. He's bleeding out. I need full authorization to commandeer the theater." "You have full authorization, Captain. Under the Patriot Act, you are now the ranking officer on site. Do whatever is necessary to save the senator. If anyone gets in your way, you have permission to neutralize. We are breaching the perimeter now." Understood, Amelia said. She hung up the phone. She turned to the 2 private security guards who had thrown her out moments ago. They were staring at her, hands hovering over their weapons, unsure of what was happening. Amelia walked toward them. She didn't look like a nurse anymore. Her posture had changed. Her shoulders were squared, her chin up. She walked with the predatory grace of a jungle cat. "Ma'am, step back," the lead guard warned. "We are under lockdown." "Gentlemen," Amelia said, her voice cutting through the siren's wail. "Inside that room, a senator is dying because your doctors don't know how to treat a binary chemical weapon wound. I am going in there to save him." "We can't let you in. You're suspended." Amelia moved. It was a blur of motion. She stepped inside the guard's guard, swept his leg, and before he hit the ground, she had disarmed him and had his own sidearm pointed at the second guard. It took less than 2 seconds. The nurses in the hallway screamed. "I am Captain Amelia Hayes, United States Army Special Forces, Medical Detachment," she announced, her voice booming. "This is a federal operation. Stand down or I will put you down." The second guard raised his hands, eyes wide. Okay, just don't shoot." Amelia handed the gun back to the guard on the floor, who was looking up at her in utter disbelief. "Guard the door. No one enters but the FBI. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am," the guard stammered, taking his gun back with a shaking hand. Amelia turned and kicked the doors to OR1 open. Inside, the room was a scene of carnage. Sterling was frantically doing chest compressions on a corpse-like senator. "I said get out!" Sterling roared, not looking up. "Step away from the patient, Sterling," Amelia ordered. "Security." "Security isn't coming for me, Gregory. They're working for me now." Amelia walked up to the table. She shoved Sterling hard, sending him stumbling back into a tray of instruments. "You're insane!" Sterling shrieked. "I'm calling the police." "The police are already here," Amelia said. She looked at the anesthesiologist. "Do we have fresh frozen plasma?" "Yes, but—" "Push it, all of it, and get me cryoprecipitate, now." "But Dr. Sterling said—" "I don't care what he said," Amelia barked. "Look at the monitor. He's dead in 30 seconds unless we reverse the coagulopathy. Move!" The sheer force of her command broke the paralysis. The team moved. Amelia reached into the open cavity. She didn't use clamps. She used her fingers to locate the lacerated artery. She applied direct pressure, feeling the slippery, damaged tissue. "Come on, William," she whispered to the unconscious senator. "Don't you die on me." "Not today." Outside, the sound of breaking glass and shouting grew louder. The FBI had arrived. The doors to Operating Room 1 didn't just open, they were nearly taken off their hinges. A phalanx of 6 men in full tactical gear, emblazoned with FBI in bold yellow letters across their chest plates, swept into the sterile environment. Their movement was fluid, practiced, and lethal. They secured the corners of the room in seconds, weapons drawn but pointed low, scanning for threats. Dr. Gregory Sterling, who had been shoved into the corner by Amelia, let out a strangled yelp. "Thank God! Arrest her! She's crazy! She's killing the senator!" The lead agent, a tall man with silver hair and a face carved from granite, ignored Sterling entirely. He holstered his weapon and walked straight toward the operating table where Amelia was deep inside the senator's abdominal cavity. "Status, Captain?" the agent asked, his voice calm amidst the chaos. Amelia didn't look up. Her hands were buried in the senator's torso, her fingers acting as a manual clamp on the severed artery. "Director Miller, nice of you to join the party. I have a Class 4 hemorrhaging event caused by a neurocoagulant agent. The vascular integrity is compromised. I've ordered a massive transfusion protocol, but the local talent," she nodded briefly toward a pale Sterling, "was hesitant." "Do you need a retrieval team?" Director Miller asked. "No. He can't be moved. If I release pressure, he bleeds out in 10 seconds. I have to repair the aorta right here, right now. I need a vascular graft, 4 neuroproline sutures, and someone to hold the retractors who isn't going to faint." Miller turned to the room. His eyes landed on the trembling anesthesiologist. "You, monitor the vitals. If they drop, you tell the captain. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," the anesthesiologist stammered. Miller then turned to Sterling. "You, scrub in. You're going to assist." Sterling scoffed, finding a shred of his arrogance. "Me? Assist? I am the chief of surgery. I do not assist nurses, especially not a mentally unstable janitor who thinks she's a soldier. This is preposterous. I demand to speak to your superior." Miller stepped into Sterling's personal space. The director was not a small man, and the menace radiating off him was palpable. "Dr. Sterling, my superior is the President of the United States, and right now, the woman holding that man's life in her hands is Captain Amelia Hayes, formerly of the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. She is the finest combat surgeon this country has ever produced. If she tells you to scrub in, you scrub in. If she tells you to jump, you ask how high on the way up. If you refuse, I will arrest you for obstruction of justice and treason. Scrub in." Sterling's face went white. The reality of the situation crashed down on him. The slow nurse, the one he had berated for months, the one he had threatened to fire for being lazy, was Delta Force. He scrubbed in. For the next 4 hours, the operating room was a place of intense, silent warfare. Amelia worked with a speed and precision that defied medical textbooks. Where Sterling would have been delicate, Amelia was efficient. She knew exactly how much abuse the human body could take, because she had seen bodies pushed to their absolute limits in the worst places on Earth. "Suction," Amelia commanded. Sterling obeyed, his hands shaking slightly. He watched as she sutured the graft. Her knots were perfect. Her hands were steady as stone. She anticipated complications before they appeared on the monitors. "Pressure is stabilizing," the anesthesiologist announced, awe in his voice. "Clotting factors are normalizing. The antidote is working." Amelia didn't celebrate. She kept working until the final stitch was placed. "Closing," she murmured. As she stapled the incision shut, the adrenaline that had been fueling her began to fade, replaced by the crushing weight of exhaustion. She had been awake for 30 hours. She had been living a lie for 6 months. "He's stable," Amelia said, stepping back and stripping off her bloody gloves. "Move him to the ICU. I want 2 agents on the door, 2 on the window, and 1 inside the room at all times. No food or water unless I clear it personally." "Understood," Miller said. "Good work, Captain." Amelia turned to look at Sterling. The chief of surgery was staring at her, as if she were an alien creature. "You," Sterling whispered. "You fixed a descending aortic dissection with a chemically compromised field. That's impossible." "It's not impossible, Doctor," Amelia said, her voice tired but hard. "It's just necessary. And for the record, I passed nursing school and medical school and the Q course." She walked past him, heading for the door. "Miller, I need a debrief and a coffee, in that order." "We have a situation room set up in the lobby," Miller said, walking with her. "We have the hospital completely surrounded. No one gets in or out. We're scrubbing the manifest now." "Why?" Amelia asked, pausing at the door. "You caught the shooter, right?" Miller's face grew grim. "We got the shooter on the roof. Sniper. Local police took him out. But his spotter, the intelligence, suggests the spotter was inside the building. Someone marked the senator. Someone told them which entrance he was coming in." Amelia's eyes narrowed. The warmth of the victory in the OR evaporated. An inside man. Exactly. And until we find them, Providence General is a prison. The lobby of Providence General had been transformed. The reception desk was now a command post, covered in laptops, satellite radios, and tactical maps. Dozens of agents moved with purposeful urgency. The staff, doctors, nurses, orderlies, and patients had been corralled into the cafeteria, which was now a holding zone. Amelia walked into the lobby. She had shed her blood-soaked scrubs. She now wore a pair of tactical cargo pants and a black t-shirt that she had retrieved from her go bag in her locker. A pistol was strapped to her thigh, and a radio headset was around her neck. The transformation was total. The hunched shoulders and averted gaze of Nurse Amelia were gone. Captain Hayes stood tall, her eyes scanning the room with predatory intelligence. Hospital Administrator Cromwell, a balding man who sweated profusely when nervous, was arguing with an agent near the elevators. When he saw Amelia, he stopped mid-sentence. "You!" Cromwell pointed a shaking finger. "You're the cause of this. My hospital is a fortress because of you. I'm going to sue the government. I'm going to sue you." Amelia walked up to him. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. "Mr. Cromwell, sit down." "I will not. I run this facility." "Mr. Cromwell," Amelia said, leaning in close. "Senator Thorne was shot with a bullet laced with a modified Voronoi neurotoxin. That is a signature of the Moretti crime syndicate. Do you know who they are?" Cromwell swallowed hard. "The Mafia?" "More than just Mafia," Amelia corrected. "They are international arms dealers. They don't just shoot people. They send messages. And someone in your hospital helped them. So, unless you want to be treated as a co-conspirator, you will sit down, shut up, and give me the personnel files for every employee hired in the last 6 months." Cromwell sat down. Amelia turned to Miller. "Talk to me. Who is on the suspect list?" Miller pulled up a display on a large monitor. "We've vetted the doctors. Sterling is an idiot, but he's clean. His financials show he's in debt, but mostly from alimony and gambling. Nothing that suggests a payout from the Morettis. The nursing staff is clean. We're looking at support staff." "Support staff is invisible," Amelia muttered, looking at the screens. "Like I was." She thought back to her time undercover. For 6 months, she had been a ghost. She knew who stole lunches, who slept in the break room, and who was having an affair. But who was a killer? "Show me the roster for the cleaning crew and the dietary staff," Amelia requested. Miller tapped a few keys. A list of names and photos scrolled by. Amelia scanned them, her mind working like a facial recognition software. John Doe, reliable. Mary Smith, steals Splendor packets. Kevin Jones. She paused. "Stop. Scroll back." Miller paused the screen. The photo showed a young man, maybe 25, with a friendly smile, listed as Kevin Jones, orderly. "What about him?" Miller asked. "Kevin," Amelia said slowly. "He started 3 months ago. Quiet, polite, always volunteers for the graveyard shift. He brings donuts on Fridays." "Background check came back clean," Miller said. "From Iowa. No criminal record." "Zoom in on his hands," Amelia ordered. Miller zoomed in on the photo. It was a candid shot taken for his ID badge. His hands were resting on the counter. "Look at the callus on the index finger of his right hand," Amelia pointed, "and the slight discoloration on the webbing between the thumb and finger." "Shooter's callus," Miller realized. "And gunpowder residue staining? Or tattoo removal?" "Both," Amelia said. "He's not from Iowa. That's a combat grip. I've seen him around the pharmacy a lot. More than an orderly needs to be." Suddenly, the radio in Amelia's ear crackled. "Captain, we have a disturbance in the ICU. Someone is trying to bypass the checkpoint." Amelia's blood ran cold. "The senator. We have agents there," Miller assured her. "If it's Kevin, your agents are already dead," Amelia said, already sprinting toward the stairs. "He's not a spotter, Miller. He's the cleanup crew. The sniper failed, so they activated the backup." Amelia didn't wait for the elevator. She took the stairs 3 at a time, her legs burning, her breath steady. She reached the 4th floor and burst into the hallway leading to the ICU. The scene was chaos. 2 FBI agents were on the floor, groaning, clutching their knees. They hadn't been shot. They had been surgically dismantled with close-quarters combat techniques. At the end of the hall, standing in front of the senator's door, was Kevin the orderly. He was holding a syringe. He wasn't smiling anymore. His face was a mask of cold concentration. He turned as he heard Amelia. "Nurse Hayes," Kevin said, his voice smooth and mocking. "Or should I say, Captain, you played the part well. I almost believed you were just a pathetic little scrub." "Step away from the door, Kevin," Amelia said, drawing her weapon. "Or whatever your name is." "It's Dante," he said, tossing the empty tray he was holding to the floor with a clatter. "Dante Moretti. And I have unfinished business with the senator." "He's under federal protection," Amelia said, advancing slowly, keeping her aim steady. "He's a thief," Dante spat. "He took our contracts. He froze our assets. He needs to die, and you—" He looked her up and down. "You're just a speed bump." "Drop the syringe," Amelia warned. "It's just air," Dante smiled, tapping the plastic barrel. 5 cc's of air into his IV line. An air embolism. Untraceable. Looks like heart failure. Very sad. "You have to get past me first." Dante laughed. He dropped into a fighting stance that Amelia recognized instantly. Krav Maga mixed with Systema. He was highly trained, probably by the same mercenaries who trained her enemies overseas. "I took down 2 of your feds in 10 seconds, Dante sneered. "What makes you think you can stop me?" "Because," Amelia said, holstering her gun and raising her fists, "I'm not a fed, and I'm definitely not a nurse." Dante lunged. The fight was brutal and fast. Dante was younger and stronger, but Amelia was faster and fought with a desperation born of duty. He threw a punch at her throat. She blocked it and countered with a strike to his ribs. He grunted, surprised by the force of the blow. He spun, aiming a kick at her head. Amelia ducked, sweeping his leg. He recovered instantly, rolling to his feet and pulling a knife from his waistband. "Now it's fun," Dante grinned. He slashed at her. The blade caught the fabric of her tactical pants, slicing the material but missing the skin. Amelia backed up, waiting for an opening. "You're good," Dante admitted, circling her. "For a woman." "Mistake number 1, Amelia said. Underestimating the opponent." She waited for his next strike. He thrust the knife toward her stomach. Instead of backing away, Amelia stepped into the attack. She grabbed his wrist with both hands, twisting it violently. There was a sickening crack as his wrist broke. Dante screamed, dropping the knife. Amelia didn't stop. She drove her knee into his stomach, doubling him over, and then delivered a precise, devastating elbow strike to the back of his neck. Dante Moretti collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Amelia stood over him, breathing hard, wiping a trickle of blood from her lip. The elevator doors dinged open. Miller and a dozen agents poured out, weapons raised. They saw the unconscious assassin and Amelia standing victoriously over him. "Clear!" Amelia shouted. "Suspect neutralized. Secure him and check the senator." Miller looked at Dante, then at the unconscious agents, and finally at Amelia. "Did you break his wrist?" "He had a knife," Amelia shrugged, checking her own pulse. "He shouldn't have brought a knife to a nurse fight." Miller let out a short, incredulous laugh. "You're terrifying, Hayes." "I'm just doing my job, sir." As they handcuffed Dante, Amelia looked down the hall. Peeking out from the supply closet was Brenda, the head nurse who had tormented her for months. Brenda's eyes were wide as saucers. She had seen the whole thing. Amelia walked over to the closet. Brenda flinched, terrifyingly expecting Amelia to hit her. Brenda, the head nurse stammered. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. For everything. For the schedule. For the cleaning. Amelia looked at the woman who had made her life miserable. She could have humiliated her. She could have used her authority to fire her. Instead, Amelia reached out and adjusted Brenda's crooked name badge. The linen closet on the 3rd floor is disorganized, Brenda, Amelia said calmly. And Mr. Henderson in 402 needs his pillows fluffed. Make sure it gets done. She turned and walked away, leaving Brenda shaking in the doorway. The adrenaline that had fueled Amelia through the surgery and the fight in the hallway was beginning to wane, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. The hospital was secure, technically. Dante Moretti was handcuffed to a steel chair in a makeshift interrogation room set up in the administrator's office, guarded by 3 agents with automatic rifles. But Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that the other shoe was about to drop. She sat opposite Dante. He was battered, his wrist splintered, his face swelling from her elbow strike. Yet, he was smiling. It was a blooded, arrogant smile that made Director Miller want to punch him. You're awful quiet for a dead man walking, Miller growled, pacing the room. We have you on attempted murder of a federal official, assault on federal agents, and terrorism charges. You're looking at Supermax for the rest of your life. Unless you give us the network. Dante laughed, a wet, rasping sound. You think I care about prison? My family owns prisons. I'll live better inside than you do on your government pension, Director. He turned his gaze to Amelia, who was leaning against the desk, cleaning her nails with a combat knife she had retrieved from her gear. You're the interesting one, Dante mused. Captain Hayes, the ghost of Kandahar. We heard rumors about you. We thought you were dead. It's almost poetic that you're playing nursemaid to dying old men. Amelia didn't look up. I'm not playing, Dante. I saved him. You failed. That's the reality. Did I? Dante leaned forward, wincing slightly. You saved the senator, sure, but you missed the bigger picture. You always do. You special forces types, you're so focused on the target, you forget the environment. Amelia stopped cleaning her nails. She looked him in the eye. What are you talking about? Why do you think I came in as an orderly? Dante asked softly. Why spend 3 months changing bedpans and mopping floors? Just to get a shot at Thorne? I could have used a drone. I could have used a car bomb. Miller stopped pacing. He's bluffing. He's trying to buy time. No, Amelia said, her voice dropping. He's not. He's bragging. She walked over to Dante, grabbing his broken wrist. He gasped in pain. 3 months, Dante. You had access to everything. The pharmacy, the ventilation, the oxygen supply. Dante gritted his teeth through the pain, sweat beading on his forehead. You're getting warmer, Captain. You see, the senator was the primary target. But the Moretti family, we believe in thoroughness. We knew that if Thorne survived the initial hit, he'd come here. This is the nearest level 1 trauma center. We knew the feds would swarm the place. We knew you'd lock it down. Amelia's eyes widened. The lockdown. You wanted us to seal the building. Fish in a barrel, Dante whispered. Amelia released him and spun around to Miller. Where is Cromwell? The administrator. Miller blinked. I don't know. He was in the lobby 20 minutes ago. I told him to stay put. Find him! Amelia screamed, grabbing her radio. All units, locate Administrator Cromwell immediately. This is a code red priority. She looked back at Dante. What did you do? Cromwell has a gambling debt. Dante smirked. Huge. My father bought his debt. Cromwell is a weak man. He'd do anything to save his own skin. I told him that if the hit on the senator went south, he had to initiate Plan B to wipe the evidence, including the surveillance tapes and the people who saw me. The oxygen main, Amelia realized, horror washing over her. The main liquid oxygen tanks in the basement. If he tampers with the pressure regulators, it's not just a tank, Captain, Dante laughed. It's a bomb, a massive pressurized bomb, right beneath the foundations of the East Wing. And since you locked all the blast doors, the pressure wave will have nowhere to go but up. How long? Amelia demanded, drawing her gun and pressing it to Dante's forehead. How long on the timer? Dante checked the clock on the wall. Cromwell went down there when the lockdown started. I'd say you have maybe 10 minutes before the pressure valves fail critically. Boom! Amelia didn't waste another second. She holstered her weapon and sprinted for the door. Miller, evacuate the East Wing. Get the senator out. I don't care if you have to carry him on your back. Move everyone to the west parking lot. Where are you going? Miller shouted, running after her. The basement, Amelia yelled back. I have to manually override the regulators before the tank blows. Amelia ran through the lobby, which was now a scene of confusion as agents tried to organize a rapid evacuation. She saw Dr. Sterling arguing with a nurse near the stairwell. Dr. Sterling! Amelia shouted. Sterling turned, looking exhausted. Captain, what is happening? They're saying we have to leave. Come with me, Amelia ordered. What? Are you insane? I'm evacuating. I need you. Amelia grabbed his arm, her grip like iron. You know the layout of the physical plant down there. You were on the building committee when they renovated the oxygen farm. I read your file. You know the schematics. Sterling looked at the panic in the lobby, then at Amelia's fierce, determined face. He swallowed hard. The arrogant, selfish doctor was terrified, but somewhere deep inside, the oath he had taken, do no harm, flickered to life. Yes, I know the schematics. Then run, Amelia said. They burst into the stairwell, descending rapidly into the bowels of the hospital. The air grew cooler and smelled of damp concrete and ozone. What are we looking for? Sterling panted as they reached the sub-basement. The main regulator valve for the liquid oxygen tanks, Amelia said, checking the corners with her weapon drawn. Cromwell is down here, and he's desperate. They reached the heavy steel door marked Cryogenic Storage, authorized personnel only. The electronic lock had been smashed. The door was slightly ajar. A loud hissing sound emanated from inside. It was the sound of high-pressure gas escaping, a sound that signaled imminent catastrophe. Amelia kicked the door open. Inside, the room was filled with a low fog of condensed water vapor. Pipes hissed and groaned. In the center of the room, standing before a massive console of gauges, was Administrator Cromwell. He was holding a large wrench, frantically turning a red wheel. Cromwell! Stop! Amelia shouted, aiming her weapon. Cromwell spun around. He looked deranged, his eyes wild, sweat pouring down his face. I can't. They'll kill me. They said they'd kill my wife. I have to destroy the evidence. You're going to kill everyone, Sterling yelled, stepping forward. Do you have any idea what happens if that tank ruptures? It's 5,000 gallons of liquid oxygen. It will level the block. I have to, Cromwell screamed. He turned back to the wheel, wrenching it harder. A pipe burst nearby, spraying freezing gas into the air. The pressure gauge was in the red zone, the needle trembling violently. Drop the wrench, Cromwell, Amelia warned. No! Amelia fired, not to kill, but to incapacitate. The bullet struck the heavy wrench in Cromwell's hand, sending it flying with a spark of metal on metal. The impact shattered Cromwell's resolve. He fell backward, cowering against the tank, sobbing. Secure him, Amelia shouted to Sterling. Sterling, fueled by adrenaline, rushed forward and tackled the administrator, pinning him to the ground. "You idiot! You absolute idiot!" Sterling shouted, punching Cromwell in the shoulder. Amelia holstered her gun and ran to the console. The hissing was deafening now. The needle was pegged at maximum pressure. The safety valves had been bypassed mechanically. "He stripped the threads!" Amelia yelled, trying to turn the emergency cutoff. It spun uselessly in her hands. "The manual override is broken. We can't shut off the inflow." Sterling looked up from pinning Cromwell. "The release valve. There's a manual purge valve on the top of the tank. We have to vent the pressure directly into the atmosphere stack." Amelia looked up. The tank was 20 feet high. A narrow ladder led to a catwalk on top. The air up there was thick with freezing vapor. "If I open that purge valve manually," Amelia yelled over the roar, "the oxygen concentration will be lethal. One spark, one bit of static electricity, and I turn into a human candle." "It's the only way," Sterling cried. "The tank is going to rupture in less than 2 minutes." Amelia looked at the ladder. She looked at her hands. She thought about the senator upstairs, about Mr. Henderson in room 402, about the nurses, the children in the pediatric ward. "Keep him pinned," Amelia said to Sterling. "And if I catch fire, tell Miller he owes me a drink." She began to climb. The climb was a nightmare. The metal rungs were coated in ice from the leaking vapor. Amelia's hands numbly gripped the steel. The roar of the escaping gas was like a jet engine screaming in her ear. She reached the top of the tank. The visibility was near zero. White fog swirled around her. She could feel the cold seeping through her tactical gear, biting into her skin. Focus, Hayes. Locate the valve. Turn the wheel. Survive. She crawled along the grating. There it was, a large yellow wheel marked emergency vent. It was rusted and frozen shut. Amelia grabbed the wheel with both hands and heaved. It didn't budge. "Come on!" she screamed, gritting her teeth. She planted her feet against the railing for leverage. She pulled until her muscles screamed, until she felt the tendons in her shoulders straining to the breaking point. Below, the main pipe groaned. A warning siren began to blare. "Critical pressure. Evacuate immediately." "Turn, damn you!" Amelia closed her eyes and visualized the mechanism. Ice in the threads. It needed a shock. She pulled her sidearm. It was a risky move. A gunshot could cause a spark, but she had no hammer. She reversed the weapon, holding it by the barrel, using the heavy steel grip as a blunt instrument. She smashed the grip against the locking nut of the wheel, once, twice, 3 times. Ideally, she needed a brass hammer to avoid sparks, but she didn't have one. She prayed. Clang. The ice shattered. She holstered the gun and grabbed the wheel again. She roared, putting every ounce of her strength, the strength forged in boot camp, in the desert, in the gym where she trained alone at 3 a.m., into the turn. Creak. The wheel moved a 1/4 inch, then an inch. Then, with a rush of gas that nearly blew her off the catwalk, the valve opened. A massive plume of pure oxygen shot upward into the ventilation stack. The screaming of the pipes began to subside. The needle on the gauge below dropped out of the red zone. Amelia collapsed onto the grating, gasping for air. The sudden release of tension left her shaking. She lay there for a moment, listening to the mechanical hum of the hospital, returning to normal. She checked her watch. They had 30 seconds to spare. She climbed down slowly. Her hands were blistered from the cold and the friction. Sterling was still sitting on Cromwell, looking up at her with an expression of pure awe. "You did it," Sterling whispered. Amelia landed on the concrete floor. She walked over to Cromwell, who was weeping silently. She pulled a set of zip ties from her pocket and secured his hands behind his back. "Dr. Sterling," Amelia said, her voice hoarse. "Take this man upstairs. Hand him to Director Miller. Tell him the basement is clear." What about you? Sterling asked, standing up. He looked at her differently now. The contempt was gone. You saved us all. I owe you an apology. A significant one. Amelia looked at him. She saw a man who had been stripped of his ego and forced to confront reality. You don't owe me anything, Gregory. Just listen to your nurses next time. They see things you don't. I will, he said earnestly. I promise. Go. Sterling dragged Cromwell out. Amelia stayed behind for a moment. She leaned against the cold tank. She was done. The mission was over. Her cover was blown. Amelia the nurse no longer existed. 2 days later, the sun was shining on Seattle, a rare occurrence. Providence General was still buzzing, but the police tape was gone. Senator Thorne was sitting up in bed in the VIP suite. He looked pale, but alive. His wife was holding his hand. The door opened. Amelia walked in. She wasn't wearing scrubs, and she wasn't wearing tactical gear. She wore a sharp navy blue blazer, jeans and boots. Her hair was down, cascading over her shoulders. She looked like a different person again. Captain Hayes, the senator smiled weakly. Or should I call you my guardian angel? Captain is fine, sir. Amelia smiled warmly. How is the incision? Dr. Sterling says it's the best stitching he's ever seen. He was practically bragging about it, even though he admitted he didn't do it. Thorne chuckled. Miller tells me you saved the whole building from a gas explosion. Just turning a valve, sir. You're humble. That's a rare quality in D.C., Thorne said. He squeezed his wife's hand. You saved my life, Amelia. You saved my family from grieving today. How can I repay you? Get the bill passed, Senator, Amelia said seriously. The Veterans Health Care Bill, the one you were fighting for. Make sure guys like Mr. Henderson in room 402 can get their heart medication without fighting an insurance company. Thorne nodded solemnly. You have my word. I'll sign it the day I get back to the floor. Amelia nodded. Then we're square. She turned to leave. Where will you go? Thorne asked. Back to the unit. Amelia paused at the door. She looked out into the hallway. She saw nurses rushing by. She saw Brenda helping a new intern. She saw Sterling actually listening to a patient. No, sir, Amelia said. I think I'm done with the sand and the noise. Miller offered me a position as a medical instructor at Quantico. Less shooting, more teaching. A loss for the battlefield, but a gain for the future, Thorne said. Amelia walked out of the room. She walked down the long corridor toward the elevator. As she passed the nurses' station, the chatter stopped. Brenda looked up. The other nurses looked up. Even the interns stopped what they were doing. They didn't know the full details, classified operations and all that. But they knew enough. They knew she had saved the senator. They knew she had stopped the bomb. As Amelia reached the elevators, Brenda stepped out from behind the desk. She didn't say a word. She just started to clap. Slowly, awkwardly at first, then with growing enthusiasm, the other nurses joined in, then the doctors, then the patients in the hall. Dr. Sterling stepped out of his office. He watched Amelia standing by the elevator. He nodded to her, a deep, respectful nod of an equal. He joined the applause. Amelia Hayes, the ghost, the janitor, the slow nurse, stood there for a moment, letting the sound wash over her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a weapon. She felt seen. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside, pressing the button for the lobby. As the doors closed, shielding her from the applause, a single tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away, took a deep breath, and smiled. The doors opened to the bright sunlight of the world outside. Captain Hayes stepped out, ready for whatever came next. That is the story of Captain Amelia Hayes, a reminder that heroes often walk among us in the most unassuming disguises. It shows us that true strength isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the most capable when the world falls apart. From the battlefields of the Middle East to the sterile halls of a Seattle hospital, Amelia proved that skills, dedication, and a moral compass are the only things that truly matter. She taught an arrogant doctor humility, took down a crime syndicate, and saved a hospital, all while pretending to be just a nurse. It makes you wonder who is pouring your coffee or checking your vitals today. They might just be the most dangerous and heroic person you'll ever meet. If you enjoyed this story of hidden heroes and high-stakes drama, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Did you suspect the orderly Kevin was the villain? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. I post thrilling original dramas every week. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.